Hey YouTube, I'm Doc, Doc's Motorcycle Service. Rawr, 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 rawr. Happy Independence Day. Happy 4th of July weekend. I hope you're spending your weekend enjoying yourself. I'm about to melt. So we're in the garage early this morning before it gets hot. Okay, so we're going to roll right into it. Again, welcome back to the garage. Also, don't forget to check out the Facebook page. Go there, post your comments, take a look at some videos. I post a little update there on some stuff we're doing. Donna's coming back together. Got the handlebars on her. Everything's looking good. Forks are back in. We're doing pretty good with what we want to do, even though we're experiencing some delays with the COVID-19. So we've had to jump around and prioritize what we're doing so we can stay busy in this and keep you entertained and hopefully help you learn something. This is going to be a sidebar video. I think that's what I'm going to call something that we've decided to do that we were not planning to do. And today we're going to talk about steel braided hose and steel braid weave. This is a steel braided hose. As you can see, if it'll stay in focus, there's a hose in there. This is a 3/8 inside diameter, oil resistant, gas resistant rubber line with a steel braid covering made onto it. Well, you know, that's kind of cool. And we got to thinking, hey, we'd like to have some of this on the bike. And then I got to thinking, I'd like to cover some other things. This, I believe, is 18 gauge electrical wiring with a purple power plastic coating on it. There is a black wire coming out of the fender tip light on this bike that runs power to the fender tip and then goes via a wire up to the electrical dashboard and ties in. I was thinking, well, if we're going to end up putting steel braided throttle cables and a steel braided clutch cable on this thing and a steel braided front disc caliper line on it, that little black wire coming out of the fender is going to look like shit. People are going to walk up to them and go, man, look at that, you've got some steel braided line. Wait a minute, you ain't got no steel braid line down there. And that got me to thinking, is there such thing as a steel braided electrical wire? Well, I took some time and I did some internet research, and what I came up with was steel braid weave. Very interesting. So I thought, well, that's kind of cool, because after my internet search, I was led to a place called 4R Customs. I'm going to put their information up right here, because I'm going to tell you something. Pay attention to me now. I'm being serious. The man I spoke to over there, dude was unbelievably knowledgeable. I first found his product being advertised on Amazon.com. So I sent him a message and I said, hey, do you make anything, do you make steel braided wire? And the guy sent me an email back really quick. He said, no, I don't, but I make a weave covering. And I went, really? So I ended up calling him. Actually, he ended up calling me, because to get to him, you know, you had to fill out that little contact us thing, and it put my number in there. Man called me. We had a nice conversation. We talked about a lot of different stuff. And one of the concerns that I had was steel braid hose. This particular hose does not have a plastic coating on it. This is very abrasive. Can you hear that? Alright. But in turn, here is a steel braided speedometer cable. Now, I don't know if you can see this or not, but this is nice and smooth. It has a plastic coating on it. This does not. This is abrasive. And after talking to the gentleman at 4R Customs Wire, he asked me, what are you working on? Now, I'm going to tell you something. You call a product manufacturer or a representative somewhere and they start asking you questions about what are you working on, they're taking an interest in what you're doing. Well, I told him, And he's like, okay, well, here's what you also need. If you're going to use my Steel Braided Weave covering, then you should also use my Steel Braid Weave clear heat shrink to go over it and protect it. Because I'm telling you, this right here, if it starts rubbing against paint or chrome, it's going to mark it up. We're putting a lot of time and effort in, Donna. We want to do this right. Remember, I said this to you earlier in the beginning. If you're going to do something, do it right. So if you have any questions about steel braided hose or steel braided wire or working something on a specific special project, you need to call these people at 4R Customs Wire. I'm going to put a little banner up right here. YouTube will not let me link to another website now unless I own it. So thanks, YouTube. Appreciate it. So right here across the bottom, if it's not already showed up, is going to be a link to, not a link to, but the name of this guy's company and his website. So with that out of the way, what we're going to do is we're going to take this 1/8 of an inch steel weave. We're going to cover the black wire, the black plastic coated wire that's already on Donna, and then we're also going to put some clear heat shrink tubing on it to run that back. So this is going to be a sidebar video, sidebar steel braid weave video. We're going to get into that now. I'm going to show you some tips and tricks. First time I've ever done this, but the man over there at 4R Custom shared it with me, so we're going to give it a try. So let's get at it. Here is our wire coming out of the fender. It passes through a rubber grommet after leaving the fixture, I guess you might say, up here at the front, and it passes on the inside of the fender through some looms and comes out. As I said earlier, I believe this thing was then zip tied to the brake caliper cable, and then as it come up here, it went in behind the tank. So this is what we're going to get started on. Basically, we're going to cut this end off. We're going to pull the wire back through the fender out of the wire looms so we have some area to work with. We're not going to run this steel braid weave all the way back here. That doesn't make sense. But we will run it probably about 2 inches past this hole. We'll take a little piece of Sharpie and mark this spot right here, knowing that we'll go about 3 inches in there depending on how it turns. This steel braid is small, it's malleable, it's bendable, it's flexible, but what we want to do is leave enough room in there so we can put our clear plastic sleeve back over it. And here's a little tech tip. Again, using a wire, once we get the weave slid up on it, we're going to leave the sleeve back here about this far off of the wire. And when we go to put our clear plastic heat shrink on it, we're going to run that heat shrink past the tip of the weave to keep it from unraveling. As you can see, it's wanting to unravel right here. But if we run this over here a good ways, it'll prevent that from raveling further up. If we just stop this right here, it could maybe tear up and it wouldn't have a good fit on the end. So we're going to delve inside this thing, take the grommet out, run the weave over it, run the clear over it, run it about a 1/2 inch past the end of the steel braid. Then we're going to take a heat gun to that. It's going to be very difficult for you to see this, but what I will do is do a practice piece on the table here for you to see how we did it. Alright, so we got our steel braided weave, and I wanted to show this to you before we got started. This stuff, anytime you go to cut this stuff, it's going to start to unravel. The gentleman who sent me this piece had this little piece of heat shrinking tubing right here on the end, and he told me about this stuff. He says before you start to cut it with a wire clipper, or before you start to cut it with a hacksaw blade or whatever, he was like, put a little heat shrink on it and then put your heat shrink there and then cut it in the middle of the heat shrink. The heat shrink will help it not to unravel. So what we're going to do is, I've got the old connector here. We're going to just take a piece of this wire here. We're going to cut it off as an experiment. Get that out of the way. And what we're going to do here is, let's say this was the wire that we were working on. Alright, so we're going to not worry about this end of the wire, because this is the wire that goes to the light bulb inside the fender tip mount. But this is the piece over here that we're going to be dealing with. Keep in mind that on your wires, you're going to need a little bit of stripped wire at the end for putting your male or your female connector on, or whatever it is that you're going to do with it. So what we want to do is run that steel braid down to about right here, but we want our insulation to come past it. Remember, this steel braid, I think, was I think a 5-foot section of it was either $6 or $10. It's kind of expensive, but man, it gives your bike a really cool look. So this is what we're going to go for right here. But what we're going to do is slide this heat shrink, this black. I got some of my old cheap stuff because the clear right there, and we're going to bring this down here and we're going to work it through this heat shrink. Try to get all of your wire inside it. Now again, when you order this, you're not going to have to worry about it because it's going to come with a tip already on it holding it together. You just slide over it. Alright, so see how simple that went on? Just imagine this is clear. So again, we want our wire to go inside there. So now we're just going to take our wire, and once we have it open with all the little barbs out of the way, again, this wouldn't be a problem if we were using the piece that was already hooked together, because the little barbs wouldn't be in the way. And I don't have my good glasses on, so stand by for a second. Yeah, just come in here with something. Make sure your barbs are out of the way. Take your wire. Make sure it ain't got any burbs on it. And then you can just take it, feed it up in there. So again, depending on your project, you don't have to run this all the way to the terminal where it's going to plug in at. Once your steel braid disappears behind something like inside the fender, go about an inch, inch and a half, stop it. Once it goes behind the gas tank, stop it. Wherever it disappears at, stop it. So now we got this down to here. As I said before, I want to be able to take the heat shrink and I want to run it past this a little ways to keep it from unrailing, but leave enough down here on the end for your terminal to come up and protect. I don't have one here, or I would show you that. So now to make this work, you're going to need a heat gun. If your Linda has a really strong hair dryer, that might work. But basically all the heat gun is it's going to blow super heated air, and it's going to cause this heat shrink to shrink. Good right there? Alright, fire it up, put it on it, and you can see it. You can see it just go right down it and shrink it. And there you go. Now, this is on here nice. It's going to prevent the braid from unraveling and getting jagged. And we've got a nice smooth texture on here, just like the clear would be. Now, if we use the clear, it would look just like that speedometer cable. But here's the cool part. Now that we got this on here, and I'm going to try this with my super duper cutters here. We'll see how sharp they are. Remember, you're cutting through steel. Cool, there you go. Now it's a little barbed here on the end, but we got the heat shrink that's going to prevent it from unweaving. Before we get started on this, keep in mind heat gun is hot. For those of you out there that are idiots, all right, don't burn your finger, don't set your house on fire, don't melt your work surface. Also keep in mind you're going to need a pair of good wire cutters. Don't cut your finger off. Keep in mind this is steel. It might splinter on you a little bit and you have to pick it out of your finger. Don't send me your medical bills. If you're working on stuff, you're going to get hurt. Sometimes, if you're stupid, you're going to get hurt bad. But in any case, you're going to have a bruised knuckle, a scuffed knuckle, a sore finger, a hard palm, a splinter, or something. Don't blame me. That is my, Linda, what am I looking for here? My disclaimer. That's my disclaimer, okay? I'm not telling you how to do this. I'm telling you how I do it. So, with that said, let's go ahead and get this thing done. We got our female connector off, we got the grommet out, and we measured about 1.5 inches inside the hole. We measured, marked it with a silver Sharpie. We measured out to the tip. We come to 27 inches. So now what we've done is we've marked our cable at 28 inches to give us a little room to play with. So again, what we're going to do is cut a small piece of this heat shrink to put on this right here, so we can cut it right here, and then we'll have a piece on this to keep it from fraying, and we have a piece on this to keep it from fraying while we put our wire through. Alright, so we've got it where we wanted it to be at. It looks nice and clean. I just got it hooked up here right now for the moment. I know it's kind of hard to see some of this stuff, so I'll back out for you. And it's not, probably this is the best shot here that's going to let you see what it looks at, but we've got the weave in there. We got our clear heat shrink over it. Little inside look at how we use the heat shrink with the wire looms here mounted to the fender, with the original wire coming down to the heat shrink there. Now, a couple little things here. You'll notice that that heat shrink did not tighten up really tight right there, and that's because you can't see it, but on the inside of this we used a small black piece of heat shrink to compress the end of the steel weave together so the clear heat shrink could go over it. I'll probably hit this again with the heat gun. I missed it, but it's hot. We're trying to get on with our festivities today and wrap this up and keep it short. So I'll come back and hit that again with the heat gun and tighten that up. And you know what? If for some reason it doesn't want to tighten up very well, I'll just go in there with some clear silicone and dab around it, and that'll keep it from allowing water to get into it and to rust. One of the things that I did notice when I was working with this was that with this strip flat, with the weave flat, it made it very difficult for the wire to pass through it. So basically what I did was I just sort of pushed it together. See how it got bigger right there? And what that did was that allowed the wire to pass through it more better. And then once I got it all the way through, I just took my finger and stretched it back out. So that'd be a little tech tip there, might help you along the way. So there you go, YouTube. A little short, sweet sidebar video. I mean, there's nothing else that you can really call it, but play with this stuff. Go check out my boys at 4R Customs. Call him on the phone. Again, great guy to deal with. Wealth of information when it comes to customizing motorcycles. He might not have everything you need, but he's patient, and he'll also help you figure out what you do need and where you can get it from. So we're going to wrap this up. People are getting ready for fireworks, and people are cutting grass, enjoying their Independence Day holiday. Linda and I are going to get out there and enjoy ours. So as always, we appreciate you coming by the garage. Check out the Facebook page. Drop us a line there. Subscribe so you can see the next video. There'll be a link appearing here for the next video in the series. If it's not here now while you're watching this, that means that the other video is not up. YouTube will not allow me to link to a non-published video. But as I publish the video, I'll come back to this video and put the link here. But I will put a link up to Doc's Motorcycle Service, so you can go there and check out all the videos in case you stumbled on this one and you want to see what's happening from the beginning. I'm trying to release a video once a week. As I said before, we're kind of lagging on getting some parts in. A little update, we got the seat back. The chrome is still not come back, so that's what led us into this sidebar video. Still waiting on some other things, and once that comes back, this whole process is going to get real busy. Also, just keep this in mind. Once you get good at doing these things, it doesn't take you as long as it takes me to do it, because I'm doing it, showing you how to do it on a camera. We have to take the camera down from one location, get it set up in another location, get it zoomed in, start recording, do our thing, then we have to move back over again. So some of these projects are kind of long, other ones of them can happen pretty quick. But my tech tip here at the end of this for you is be prepared, do your research, get a service manual, watch some videos. Don't be afraid of making a mistake. You know, always buy extra. For example, this 1/8 of an inch wire loom steel weave that I bought 10 foot of it. It's sold in 5-foot sections. I bought 10 foot of it. You don't know down the road where you're going to need it at again, but if I screw it up, I got an extra piece. I don't have to reorder it and wait for it to come back in. So YouTube, happy Independence Day. Enjoy your 4th of July. Don't forget to remember those who made this possible for us. And thanks for coming by the garage. Y'all take care, and we'll see you in the next video. And